Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 19th of May, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So Hanabu here has put out a tweet today saying that there is an upcoming update for the clientdiversity.org website to include new execution layer client data based on data from execution-diversity.info, which is then weighted using data from rated.network. So the breakdown shown below is based on self-reported data and only contains 44.5% of validator coverage. Now I've shown you guys this website before, this execution-diversity.info website that basically tracks all the largest staking services pools in the Ethereum ecosystem and tracks what execution layer client they are running. And as is highlighted here, this is self-reported data. This is not data that has been crawled, and there is only 44.5% coverage. So over half the network is not covered by this. So we can kind of see that in the screenshot here that the data is quite different to what we get from Ethernodes. So Ethernodes on the clientdiversity.org website says that Geth is around 61% of the network, while Nethermind, Besu, and Aragon are 18, 10, and 10% respectively, whereas this self-reported data here is 86% Geth, 6.9% Nethermind, 4.4% Besu, and 1.8% Aragon. Now, the self-reported, data here comes from the biggest pools out there, and you can see here that a lot of them are heavily weighted towards Geth. And as I said, it's only covering 44.5% of the network, so it's missing a lot of different validators out there, different, entities out there. And I would wager that the solo stakers who I believe aren't on this website would be using minority clients. At least a lot of them would be, because they'd be more in tune with client diversity, right? With the need for client diversity. Now, I can already see some quick wins here. If we can get like Coinbase and Binance and Kraken to switch over from Geth, or at least switch like even half of their network over from Geth to something like a Nethermind, for example, or an Aragon or Besu. I think, as I've said before, Aragon and Besu probably aren't up to scratch yet for a lot of these companies. So maybe they'll go with Nethermind to start off with, but that'll be an easy win, right? Because as we can see on the rated.network website, which I can bring up here and just show you guys the percentages of what it looks like right now. Coinbase is at 12.2%, Binance is at 5%, and Kraken is at 4.2%. So just getting those to switch over, or at least just switch 50% of their services over to Nethermind instead of Geth would be a huge win here. Now, as for Lido, they're actually pretty heavy on Geth as well, so they have 88% Geth, but you would need to coordinate with all the different Lido operators, all the entities, the 30 different operators here, in order to get them to change over. And some of them obviously have already done that, but it would be nice to see even more of them change over there. And of course, Rocket Pool is using less than 50% Geth, which is nice to see, but there is a large portion that's unknown here as well in the yellow. But yeah, there are easy wins to have here. And I've heard down the grapevine that there is going to be a concerted push towards improving execution layer client diversity sometime soon, hopefully. I think Superfizz is involved with that. Obviously, he is our client diversity leader, right? We all know him and know his efforts there. But yeah, this is just a great little website, which I've shown before. But it's great to see that we're getting different ways of measuring the client diversity across both the beacon chain and the, both, I should say, the consensus layer and the execution layer. But as I've said before, the consensus layer is relatively healthy right now. It's the execution layer we really need to worry about, because if you were to extrapolate these numbers out, these numbers given by this self-reporting here, and let's just say that if you get the rest of the network to report, Geth would drop to maybe, 70% or even like 65%. That'd still be way too much, because as I've said before on the client diversity website here, this is just an estimation. And if Geth is over 66%, that is a critical issue, because if there is a bug in Geth and it causes a fork in the chain, then the chain that Geth is on, from my understanding, becomes the canonical chain, right? So from that perspective, not a great outcome, obviously. So we're going to have to work to get that down. As I said, there are things happening in the background that I think people are going to be more vocal about coming soon. But if you are running Geth, I highly recommend running Nethermind. I can't recommend Besu or Aragon just yet. Not to say they're bad, but like I think that they're not as good as Nethermind and Geth at this stage. They're getting better all the time, and I don't want to put down any clients yet. But with the consensus layer clients, I can pretty much recommend all of them, and they're all pretty good. They're all pretty much as reliable as each other. And you can see even the big ones like Prism is still having bugs with them, but just generally, I think they're all as reliable as each other. But because the execution layer clients are younger, they're definitely coming along, but they're going to take a little bit more time to do so. And there's no surprise why Geth is number one. They've been around the longest. But if you are running Geth right now as a solo staker or as a Rocket Pool mini pool operator, please consider switching over to Nethermind. They've done a lot of improvements lately. It's just going to get better and better. I'm running Nethermind. My solo staking box runs Nethermind, and I've had no issues with it. My solo staking box is a beefy box though. As some of you guys know, I overspec it, but because of all the improvements that have come to Nethermind lately, it is becoming easier and easier to run the client. Their memory usage is below 10 gig now, so if you do have something like a NUC where you've only got 16 gig memory, you should be able to run Nethermind with no issues at this point in time. And as I said, it's always getting better there. So yeah, anyway, great to see more, I guess, like data being reported here on this. We can always improve, as we all know. All right, so speaking of, I guess, updates to different clients, Lodestar put together a thread, or a short thread, about the progress that they've made with Lodestar over the last few months and sharing highlights here. So this thread was put together by Phil, who works at Lodestar here, or builds, I guess, works at ChainSafe, who builds Lodestar, and you can see all the updates here. I'll link the thread in the YouTube description below. But the reason why I bring up this thread as well is that Lodestar is still running an incentive program, so you can earn extra money for running the Lodestar client, and there's details about that on their blog, which you can find on their Twitter. And also, it's nice to see that Lodestar is gaining in market share a bit here. So they're over 1% now. I mean, just slightly at 1.01%, but they're growing, which is what we want to be seeing, right? So yeah, if you're not running Lodestar and you're interested in participating in their incentive program, you can be sure to do that. You can check it out on Lodestar's blog, which is linked on their Twitter page here. And you know what's funny? I wonder if like this incentive program is going to get Lodestar to overtake Nimbus, because I mean Nimbus is at 6.5%, so it's still a little bit further away, and Nimbus is not a bad client at all. I run Nimbus on my retirement box, so I have a box that's staking funds in my retirement account, and I'm running Nimbus there, and it's been great. It's been perfect. I've actually run every client now except Teku. I haven't actually played around with Teku too much yet. I think I did once on a test net, but you can see Teku is like third in market share, and I know a lot of people who are running it, so there's no issues there. But yeah, consider running Lodestar. That if you want to be like in the most minority client possible, then Lodestar is definitely something that you can run. And as far as I know, it is a great client. And as I said, they are running an incentive program as well, which you can get involved with if that interests you. All right, so Jasper from the Rocket Pool community has put together a 1-month Rocket Pool Atlas retrospective. Wow, it's already been 1 month since Atlas went live. Crazy how time flies. But as you all know, Atlas allowed validators with 16 ETH to convert to new 8 ETH mini pools, and people can spin up mini pools with just 8 ETH and a bunch of RPL here. So Jasper put together this thread saying, let's see the effect it had on the following growth metrics, such as the RETH supply, which is up by 44%, which is a really great trend to see here. The ETH staked, so the ETH staked is up 22%, I believe. With Rocket Pool here, and RPL staked grew by 6%. Overall, TVL has crossed 1.5 billion. As for node operators, there are 359 new individual operators, which is great to see, and new whales include the second largest node in the network. Market share, R8 grew from 5.7% to 6.9, or almost 7%, and the 1.3% growth in market share is a leader in absolute terms. So great to see the Rocket Pool growth here. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that Rocket Pool was going to grow after the Atlas upgrade, considering what a big upgrade it was. And it's great to see more whales staking with Rocket Pool and the growth not slowing down. I think, like, as well as these upgrades going live, and I know there's more upgrades coming, I think what Rocket Pool needs to focus on now, and I know there's a lot of Rocket Pool fans that watch the refuel, what they really need to focus on now is doing more direct marketing and direct business development, because I know for a fact that some of these other staking providers are going directly after high net worth, or I guess like whales, and basically getting them to stake with them. And that's why you see some of them being such big leaders, because they know where the capital is and they go there and they convince them to stake with them. Maybe that is not an approach that Rocket Pool as a community wants to take. Maybe they would rather it happen more quote unquote organically, I guess. And that's totally fine. Like, I am definitely sympathetic to that. But I think that if you want to have like massive growth and you want to have like quick growth, you definitely need to do business development and marketing as well. And I feel like Rocket Pool's marketing comes from the community mainly, which is awesome. I love that as well. But I'm not sure what the BD looks like. I'm not sure if there are people who work in the background to get bigger stakers on board or anything like that. But if there isn't, maybe that's an idea for the Rocket Pool community to consider there. But still, the growth has been great considering what the Atlas upgrade brought. And as you know, there are going to be other upgrades coming into the future to Rocket Pool to lower that 8 ETH to potentially 4 ETH and maybe even 2 ETH one day. Not sure on the timelines on that. I don't think it will happen soon, but it will definitely happen. But I think that lowering the ETH requirement is definitely one massive benefit. But there are other things that can be done as well. So yeah, good luck to the Rocket Pool community on that front. But I think that at this point they've been growing really nicely, so I can't really complain there. You guys know I love Rocket Pool. I'm an ODAO member, all that good stuff there. So it's just great to see the network continuing to grow. All right, so a tweet from Binance, which I don't think I may have not ever highlighted a tweet from Binance on the refuel before, because typically they hadn't actually spoken positively about ETH in the past. I know CZ definitely comes across as a little bit of a Bitcoin maxi, didn't really have much love for ETH, but they've been becoming more friendly lately. And they had this great little tweet here where they said it had only been a month since Ethereum's Shapella upgrade, but since then the total volume of ETH staked has surpassed 20 million. 20 million ETH has been staked, which is an awesome milestone, of course. And there is a nice little infographic here looking at the journey leading up to this milestone. So you can see here that they go all the way back to the genesis of the beacon chain, and then they kind of map the amount of ETH staked since then. So you've got the genesis, you've got the 5 million ETH staked milestone, which happened I think this is a typo here, December 2020, not December 2021 was when the beacon chain launched, but May 2021, which came around 5 months later. 5 million ETH was staked, and then it was a year before 10 million ETH was staked. So it's kind of crazy how there was a big gap there, but I think that gap definitely closed, because then we had the merge, which I guess like just after the merge, which was 6 or so months later, we crossed the 15 million ETH staked milestone. Then we had the Shapella upgrade, and then obviously we had 20 million ETH staked just recently there, a month after. So crazy amounts of growth. It's funny how like we're having more ETH staked post withdrawals and the faster rate of ETH staked post withdrawals than we ever have. I think just eyeing the chart here, I have to actually look at the charts myself to confirm that, but it definitely seems that way. And the validator queue right now, if I bring up the Beacon Chain website, is actually crazy. I mean, it's at 59,000. Where I looked at this before, like a few hours ago, it was at 56,000. So it's almost 60,000 now. Man, the hunger people have to stake ETH is incredible. This means that the queue, I believe, is approaching 5 weeks now. So you would have to wait 5 weeks to begin staking ETH here if you were to solo stake, or if you were to spin up a new mini pool. I believe some of the staking services will just front load, I guess, the yield for you. I know Lido does it, where essentially it just splits it with everyone else and until that validator gets spun up. And they have a couple of other different ways of doing things. And I think Rocket Pool has a similar mechanism where you, by spinning up a node operator, you can, I guess, like use Rocket Arb to take advantage of the premium spread. Don't know if there's a premium right now. I haven't checked that lately. But yeah, I mean, that's great. 60,000 pending. That's never been like that, guys. Like that wasn't even like that at the beginning of the beacon chain from memory. So this is the most pending validators we've had by far. And the fact that it happened after withdrawals confirms that thesis that a lot of people had, that withdrawals is going to be a massive de-risking event for Ethereum staking or for ETH staking, and that's exactly what we've seen here. So I'm super excited to see that has played out, because I think that is not only going to strengthen the value prop for ETH as an asset, but it's also going to strengthen a lot of the other theories and theses around ETH as an asset and around Ethereum as a network, because there's always people doubting the different things in Ethereum. Obviously, there's a lot of doubt surrounding Ethereum's roll-up-centric roadmap, but I think a lot of that doubt stems from, one, people trying to push other ecosystems, two, a lot of people not understanding how Ethereum and roll-ups work. I still see people put together long threads critiquing roll-ups that make absolutely no sense, and that seem like they are stuck a few years ago when the initial roll-up designs were coming out. So yeah, I haven't actually seen that many good critiques of roll-ups. I think probably the best critique I've seen is that rollups, in at least the short to medium term, fragment liquidity and fragment the user base. But honestly, I haven't actually seen users complaining about that. All I've seen is the, I guess, talking heads complain about that on Twitter. The actual users don't really care. They just bridge here and there. There are plenty of bridging options. They just go to where they want to go, and they're happy with it. Now, that's not to say that that's a scalable thing. That's not to say that that's something that can be scaled to like a mainstream audience, for example. But by the time this stuff gets them to a mainstream audience, and by the time your mum is using this stuff, it's all going to be abstracted away anyway. So I actually don't think that the fragmentation of liquidity and just general activity is that big of a deal. But I do think that is at least I guess like a thoughtful critique of rollups to an extent. I mean, there obviously are other critiques as well, but when I think about people's think about critiques of things and think about criticism, I always look at, okay, you're criticizing the state of the thing today. What are the chances that that criticism holds in like 6, 12, 18 months? And a lot of the criticisms around multi-sigs, centralization, permission sequences and validators, all that sorts of stuff, to me is just a temporary issue. It is not a fundamental critique of a rollup, because a rollup does not have to be centralized. It only is because obviously when it's early, the team wants to retain control, that maybe they don't have a token, so they can't decentralize. Or they have like their own plan of doing it. But really, a rollup can launch today fully decentralized. There is no need for it to have a multi-sig from a technical perspective, from a fundamental perspective. There's no need for the validators and the sequences to be permissioned. You can launch it today, be permissionless, have permissionless sequencing and validators, have an escape hash to L1, and be a fully fledged decentralized rollup. So there's no need for that. So again, as I said, like when looking at these critiques, if it's a permanent critique, if it's like a fundamentally broken thing about a rollup or about a technology, then I can take that on board. But I haven't seen any of those for rollups and L2s generally. What I have when it comes to L2s generally with the Lightning Network, and there has been a big critique of the Lightning Network for many years now that has pretty much played out in that it is very capital inefficient, and that means it can't scale very well, and that has actually played out. And also other critiques around the Lightning Network included the fact that why would anyone want to use the Lightning Network because Bitcoin is being marketed as this store of value. Why is anyone going to use it as money? And obviously on the Lightning Network, it's a payments network. So if you're not using BTC as money, then you're not using it for payments, then there's no point to the Lightning Network, right? And then if it's not even capital efficient, then no one's going to use it. So I think that when thinking about critiques, and you have to look at it, is it a fundamental critique that holds up over all time frames, or is it just like a short-term thing where it's like, oh, this thing has a multi-sig? It's like, okay, well, that's a short-term thing. Like, obviously there is some percentage of, I guess, likelihood that you have to attach to it. Like how confident are you on a percentage basis that the multi-sig is going to be removed from this rollup? And if that confidence interval is like 90%, then obviously it's a high chance. But if it's at like 20% because you don't really trust that that rollup is completely legit or that project is completely legit, well, then it's a different story, right? So you always have to look at it in that context, I believe, when you come to critiques here. But anyway, I've gone off track a little bit there. Just great to see the huge amount of ETH being staked, and great to see that the queue is so large, validating a lot of the theses that people had around staking withdrawals being a massive de-risking event. All right, so speaking of L2s, L2Beat has introduced a new side nav feature, so you can get rapid L2 info without having to endlessly scroll on the website. Now, this was a critique that I saw a few people bring up to me in DMs around L2Beat, basically saying, hey man, like, can you tell the team that it's really hard to scroll through everything and we actually need a quick way to just jump to different things? I didn't actually give the feedback to the team. I got lazy about it, but they have actually integrated this. So I believe if you go to maybe the project page, if you go to like Arbitrum 1 project page, for example, yeah, you can see the sidebar here. So you can quickly skip to their technology or withdrawals. There's no need to scroll through it, right? This is just something that you expect to see on a lot of websites that have things to scroll through. So it's just great to see that L2Beat has integrated this. And I know it may seem like something small, but it is definitely something that people have brought up. So I figured that it was worth highlighting for people. But anyway, you can go check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Bartek, who is one of the founders of L2Beat, had a great tweet thread today where he says, what is L2 transaction finality? It's simply when your L2 transaction cannot be reverted. It became part of the L1 blockchain that it's settling to. For rollups that submit L2 transaction blocks to L1, it's when these L2 blocks finalize on L1. It's easy to check on L1 when it is, just have a look. So you can see he's given an example in this thread of an Optimism transaction, I believe. They are as fast as Ethereum with L2 transactions in almost every Ethereum block. Then Arbitrum does it every 1 to 2 minutes. Polygon ZKAVM does it every 10 minutes. And then he's just comparing different networks here. I'm not going to go through them all. And the reason for the discrepancy in time here, I think the reason why the Polygon ZKAVM is 10 minutes and the rollups are 2 minutes or every block, the optimistic rollups are 2 minutes every block, is because the ZKAVMs are more expensive at the start. They get cheaper over time with more transactions on the network. So obviously it's quite expensive to post to L1, so you're not going to do it every block. You're just going to wait and then you're going to batch everything. Whereas Arbitrum, I think, has their own special way of optimizing this so that fees are smoothed out for users, so that if L1 gas fees spike for a minute or two because of some NFT mint or something, it doesn't actually affect the Arbitrum fees. And Optimism, I think, have a mechanism like that, but it seems like they're not using that right now because they're doing it on every Ethereum block, but I'm not totally sure on that one. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight this thread because it's a really great breakdown of this and what finality means for L2s and rollups, and you should definitely go check it out, and I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But there is also a bunch of debate around what's true finality, because the term finality for ETH L1 is when the chain is actually finalized after 2 epochs, right? Whereas for L2s, do we say that they have finality once they have posted their, proofs and data to L1 Ethereum? We do, but then we're using the same term to mean different things. So I think that's where a lot of confusion stems from. And I think that there are people who say, no, the L2 transactions aren't technically finalized until they have been finalized by the Ethereum L1 chain. And I get that if you're using the meaning of finality that Ethereum L1 uses, but if you're talking about transactions that can be used, if you're talking about the escape hatch being used to leave a rollup if it acts maliciously, I think that you can say that it's final when it hits mainnet. So for example here, because the Polygon ZKM EVM does it every 10 minutes, you couldn't consider your L2 transactions on the Polygon ZK EVM finalized until those 10 minutes has passed, until this is posted to the chain. So for example, if you do a transaction and 3 minutes goes past since that transaction, and then the Polygon ZK VM goes offline, and you want to use the escape patch to withdraw your funds, you would be withdrawing basically at the last point in time. So basically 3 minutes ago, since the last batch was posted to L1, which obviously is not ideal. So you would need you obviously ideally want it happening every minute, or every block, I should say, every 12 seconds on Ethereum. But that's why the different concepts and different, definitions of finality exist, because there's various different nuance there between them. But anyway, I'll link this thread in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, Sysmo has a really cool new initiative today. So they've announced that users of Tornado Cash with a Gitcoin passport can enter a privacy-preserving lottery to win a printed Privacy is Normal artwork. The first 1,000 participants will receive the NFT version. So you can check this out here at this link, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And this is the Privacy is Normal artwork that you can win. I believe that it is the Tornado Cash code, I think. It is a stylized version of the code base of Tornado Cash. Now, I know that unfortunately this is something that a lot of people won't be able to use, because maybe you never used Tornado Cash and now you can't use it because you're a US citizen, and obviously using it would hold a potential jail sentence of 30 years. So unfortunately that is the case for US citizens and persons, and really, I mean, it depends how far you want to go with this. You could even say that some people, depending where you live, you might not want to interact with this. But if you are a past user of Tornado Cash and you have a Gitcoin passport, you can still enter this. And it's up to you if you want to enter it, of course. But this is the page where to do so. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But that artwork is dope. I would hang that, right? Like, you guys know I love my art. Like, I've got my figurines and everything behind me. I don't know where I would hang this. This is a pretty big artwork, but that is dope because privacy is normal. I think I want to hit home on the actual message being spread here. Privacy is normal, guys. And there are a lot of people, corporations, governments, certain individuals that try to water down privacy and try to say that if you're trying to hide something, you're a bad actor, you're a criminal. But that logic very quickly breaks apart when you tell someone, okay, well, if you believe that, right? If you believe that privacy is only for criminals, then let me see your bank balance. And they're not going to let you see their bank balance, right? Like, it's just a very easy thing to break apart. Very easy logic to break apart because it doesn't actually make much sense when you test it. Like, if I was to walk up to a person and then I have a discussion with them, and they say, why are you so paranoid, right? Why are you so private? Like, what have you got to hide? And then I say to them, well, show me your bank account balance or tell me how much your salary is. They're going to get offended by that, most likely. They're going to be like, why are you asking me that? That's a private, that's private information. And that's none of my business. I'm like, yes, it's none of my business. Yes, it is private, right? You have, I guess, implicit social contract with the bank and with various government entities that they would be able to know your bank balance and they'll be able to know your salary, right? But you then can choose who you share that with, who you share that information with. Now, obviously, if your data is caught up in a data leak, you get angry about that, and there's a lot of uproar about that. People are like, I thought my data was private. And it's like, yes, okay, it's supposed to be private, right? And that's why privacy is normal, because there are so many things that we have about ourselves that we don't want to share. Some people like sharing everything, right? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of celebrities out there who don't live very private lives because everything that they do is under a microscope. But then there are extremely private people, which is the majority of the world, I believe, that really don't want to share those things. They don't want to tell you their bank balance. They don't want to share their salary with you. They don't want to share their intimate moments with you. They don't want to, like, without getting into too much detail here, you can see how the logic very quickly falls apart. And it's been the work of various governments around the world and various corporations to try and make privacy, demonize privacy for various different reasons. Governments obviously do it because they like having control over their population. They like increasing surveillance. They use the, I guess, like a smokescreen of protecting their citizens against things like criminals and terrorists and stuff like that. Corporations love it because they love mining your data. They don't want you having end-to-end encrypted messaging. They don't want you having data that they can't see because then they can't monetize that. So there's different incentives for these different entities and certain people pushing the message. I mean, depending on the individual, it can vary here. But generally, yeah, privacy is normal. We should fight to the death for privacy. Honestly, in my mind, we should fight as hard as possible to maintain privacy, to maintain tools like encryption, to not get encryption outlawed, to fight back when governments do things like sanction code like Tornado Cash, right? And that's what we've been doing. So I'm glad to see we're fighting back there. But I think the message of privacy is normal definitely needs to be spread more, and definitely needs to be something that we talk more about generally as a community. But anyway, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so last couple of things here. So Uniswap Labs has put out a great little tweet thread talking about account abstraction. So if you are still confused about what account abstraction is or what 4337 is, and you want a high-level overview, this is a nice little thread here for you to check out, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. Now, I'm hoping Uniswap putting out content around account abstraction means that they have plans to convert or at least add the features of account abstraction to their own wallet, because right now their wallet is basically a clone of the Rainbow wallet or something like a Coinbase wallet, and it's not an account abstraction wallet. It's not a smart contract wallet. So I would love to see them convert or add the features to that instead of just being a normal EOA wallet, because that's boring, guys. We're all used to a normal EOA or externally owned account wallet where essentially you don't get any of the nice features of a smart contract wallet, such as address whitelisting inbuilt into the wallet. There are wallets that can do address whitelisting, but it's sitting on top of the wallet. It's something that the wallet app does itself. It's not something that the actual smart contract can do. And then you can do other things like social recovery and stuff like that. So all that stuff is definitely coming, but I would love to see the bigger brands incorporate it into their wallets as well. But anyway, I'll link the thread in the YouTube description below. Running out of time here, so I want to quickly speed through this last thing from Tom Emmer, who is a politician in the US. I've talked about him a bunch on the Refuel before. So he introduced today the Securities Clarity Act with Another representative here, Darren Soto, this bill clarifies the regulatory classification of digital assets and provides market certainty for innovators and clear jurisdictional boundaries for regulators. So you can read the bill here at this link, which of course will be linked in the YouTube description below. It is very short. It is not a long bill. It is not trying to be something that gets, this massive bill where it just stuffs a bunch of irrelevant stuff into it. No, they're really just trying to make sure that they hit on exactly what they're trying to hit on, which is providing better clarity and clear jurisdictional boundaries for regulators when it comes to digital assets. So really happy to see this pushed out there. Don't know what the, chances of this bill going through is. It definitely feels like we need, at this point, a change in the leadership of the US, change in the presidency for real change to happen. Because as I've said before, Gary Gensler is a Democrat appointee. The most powerful Democrats seem to be very anti-crypto. So I think for that to change anytime soon, we would definitely need a regime change, which would mean the Republicans winning the presidency at the end of next year. I'm not going to delve into the politics of that. I don't even know what that looks like right now. I hate politics, to be honest. But in terms of how it relates to our industry and in terms of things actually changing in the US, it definitely feels like we will not be getting any positive change from the SEC, especially while Gary Gensler's at the helm, and from Democrats generally. But we'll see. We'll see as time goes on. The next election isn't until the end of next year, though, so we'll see how it unfolds over the next 18 months. But on that note, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks everyone.